Let's cross over now live to London, where News Central's international correspondent Afia is standing by for more on the passing of the Pope. To join in the conversation are Reverend Father Joseph Blay, who joins from Ghana, Reverend Father Patrick Alumuku, Director of Social Communications, Catholic Archdiocese of Abuja, and Reverend Father Anthony Gododun, Director of Social Communications, Catholic Archdiocese of Lagos. Good to have you all on the news tonight. I will start with you, Afia, for some update since the news broke. There's been, we've heard the reason he passed on. Has there been further communications from the Vatican?
Some communication from, the Pope himself. His final statement has been released, and that basically sets out for us how he would like to be buried. The statement opens, as I sense the approaching twilight of my earthly life, and with firm hope in eternal life, I wish to set out my final wishes solely regarding the place of my burial. So he has said that he wants to be buried in the Papal Basilica of St. Mary Major. Now, this is somewhere that he went before each journey and after each journey. He went to this basilica to pray to the Immaculate Mother. So he's asked to be buried there. He asked that his tomb be prepared in the burial niche in the side aisle between the Pauline Chapel and the Sforza Chapel of the Basilica. He also said the cost of preparing the burial will be covered by a sum provided by a benefactor, which he'd arranged to be transferred to the Papal Basilica of St. Mary Major. And he ended this statement by saying, "The suffering that has marked the final part of my life, I offer to the Lord for peace in the world and for fraternity amongst the people." So that was released in the past couple of hours, stating, the Pope stating in his own words where he would like to be buried. He did have a very busy Easter period. He once said in an interview that he hoped to live past this Easter. And, after 38 days in Rome's Gemelli Hospital with that double pneumonia, he was advised by doctors to slow down, but in true Pope style, he did not. On Thursday, he spent 30 minutes at a prison in Rome. On Holy Saturday, he visited St. Peter's Basilica in the evening. And yesterday, we saw him delighting crowds, where he greeted the crowds, brothers and sisters, Happy Easter. He was without the breathing apparatus that we had seen him with in the past couple of weeks. And then he did have a couple of private meetings afterwards, one with Vice President J.D. Vance of the United States and one with officials from Croatia also. And so a very busy period that the Pope went through before his death this Easter Monday morning, but very poetic, I think, that he did manage to see this last Easter and spent it amongst people, amongst the faithful, because he was the people's Pope.
Indeed, he was. Thank you very much, Afia, for that update. Let's bring in Reverend Anthony now. My colleague just talked about the simple burial that the Pope has asked for. He said he just wants his name on the tomb. That's as simple as that. He is going to be the first Pope to be buried outside the Vatican. Is there some significance here, considering that the Catholic Church is known for its traditional ways?
Well, definitely, the personality of Pope Francis was, in many ways, drifted away from the norms, as we all know it to be, and then, of course, stating categorically in his will to be buried in St. Mary's Major, one of the chapels, St. Paul's Chapel, means that he's definitely also, even in his death, drifting away from the norms. And of course, the Pope's will has to be respected, and the Vatican has confirmed that that will surely will be carried out accordingly. So it is something that in his lifetime, he was a very different personality, while still upholding the truths of our faith and morals, but even in his death, the simplicity of his life still shows very glaringly.
All right, let's bring in Reverend Father Blay. What has been the response to the demise of the Pope in Ghana, and what are some of the things he will be remembered for by the people in that country?
Very much. So, certainly it's a shocking news, even though at his age, it doesn't come too much as a shock, because for the past 2 months, since 14th of February, the Pope was admitted in the Gemelli Hospital in Rome, and even the doctors know that it was a miracle that he was able to be discharged after 40 days in the hospital. So for us here in Ghana, even though it is shocking, the church now we have what we call the sede vacante, but it is also inspiring that this man has lived a very fulfilled life. He has died very peacefully, not on the hospital bed. He was able to wash even the feet of the prisoners on Holy Thursday, and the Sunday he came out to Peter's Square to greet the people. So this is a man that he has lived the faith, carried out the mission, the mantle that the Lord threw on him right to the last moment. So he's a Pope that has really inspired us, and we know that now this is a time the church is mourning, but the entire country, together with, I think, the Catholic world, praying for a very peaceful transition to get a successor of Pope Francis.
All right, Reverend Father Patrick, talk to us about this repetition of how resilient and committed Pope Francis was up to the very last minute. I mean, there was no expectation that he will pass the very next day after giving his Easter blessings. What kind of impact is that leadership leaving for the Catholic Church?
You have mentioned some of his environment, opening the Vatican up even to lay people, but I think his last few days' action is a kind of commitment to the Lord. Commitment to the Lord, commitment to the mission that is given to him to the very last moment. It's the kind of a soldier who is called or maybe died on his feet. It's a soldier who did not run away for any other reason, but kept on to the very last moment. And I think that is a very, very big inspiration, a very, very big legacy that he has left to all Christians in the whole world.
All right, thank you very much, Reverend Father Blay. We understand you have a prior commitment, so we appreciate the time you could give to us. Thank you very much. All right, my question was originally to Reverend Father Patrick. I don't know if you could still take that on. The Pope worked till the very end. I mean, nobody expected his demise. That kind of commitment, what kind of example is that leaving for leadership in the Catholic Church?
Pope Francis has a very exemplary leadership. He gave his time, he gave his knowledge, willingness to serve the people. He loved the people and was very close to those who were the poorest of the poor. His attention to the poor, he showed in every single way, including the leadership of the church, where he was willing to look at bishops who worked in even rural and poor parishes, but who were putting out their best for Christ, to lift them up as examples to become cardinals. So he chose some of the cardinals from the peripheral areas of the world. And even in Nigeria here, you would find that he chose a bishop from a rather obscure diocese of Ekulobia. Most cardinals in the past are usually from the cities. You know, it would have been from the high cities of the country. But he chose to pay attention to those who were serving the poor and lifting them up. I think he's giving his all. He's giving great examples. He wanted a better relationship between Christians and Muslims. Went to visit Christians in Muslim countries and encouraged such communities to live happily and joyfully together in harmony and in peace and in reconciliation. He leads us to a future where we need to look towards reconciliation between Christians and Muslims, and to care for those who are less privileged.
All right, Afia, let me just ask you this before we let you go. Do we still have Afia? I wanted to find out some of the I want to find out some of the reoccurring words that we use to describe the Pope, because we know that across the world tributes have been coming in. What are some of the ones that have been recurrent and stuck out for you?
You're absolutely right, Felicity. All day we've had tributes pouring in from world leaders all across the globe. And I think what really stands out in all the tributes that I've read, and you know, this is from King Charles III and Queen Camilla, from the King of Spain, from President Emmanuel Macron, from the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, all of them really noted how he was a devoted champion, how he was a loving father, how he lived out his vocation in his word. He was a man of humility. He had an unwavering commitment to the vulnerable, to social justice, to interfaith dialogue, to those who would normally be called into the Catholic Church, and to environmentalism. He was a champion of the poor, of the marginalized, a voice for justice and a voice for peace. Those are the themes that really seem to come through in all the tributes that I've read, and I've read so many of them today. But it really was about his commitment to social justice, his commitment to inclusion, to change, and to the church, to environmentalism, to all the issues that he really, really believed in, and that he really was the people's Pope. Those were really the words that come through in all the tributes that I've seen today from all the corners of the globe.
Thank you very much. You've had a long day, so we thank you for staying up to speak with us. All right, Reverend Father Anthony, talk to us. How can the church in Africa continue to prioritize care for the poor and the vulnerable, as we know the Pope emphasized in his time?
All right. Well, definitely the Pope was an apostle of love and mercy, and then very close to the poor. And for that reason, definitely the African continent falls within the region of the poor. We have a lot of poverty, bedazzling our people and all that. And the Catholic Church has always been in the forefront in order to attend to the needs of the poor as much as we can, according to the resources that we have. So we definitely have an example in Pope Francis, who was very close, who always took the option for the poor every time he had it. And then nothing less can be said about the church in Africa in giving comfort and succor to the poor, as has been practicalized by Pope Francis during his reign as a Pope in the Catholic Church.
Father Patrick, what are your thoughts on his approach to reform and inclusivity within the church? Is that something that's replicated? And just to add to that, should more be done to address issues like priestly celibacy and women's role in the church? This is something that he also spoke about.
The synods in Rome, especially the synod on synodality, gave a lot of attention to the issue of inclusivity in the church. And I think no pope, more than Pope Francis, has given attention to inclusivity. If you look at the appointments he has made within the Vatican, he brought in some of the people whom nobody thought about in the past in the church to make, for example, the head of dicasteries from the lay people. The dicastery for social communication is head by Paolo Ruffini, Dr. Paolo Ruffini, who is an Italian, who is a lay person. It was a post for an archbishop in the Vatican. He also appointed a reverend sister, a number of reverend sisters to a number of positions in the Vatican. I think that's his own sense of inclusivity. And I think that he is leaving us with a legacy to be able to see what we can do to involve men and the lay people much more in the church.
Reverend Anthony, he was the first pope to come from Latin America, I believe, in over 1,000 years, 1,300 years. What are the chances? We know there are a clear-cut selection process for the next pope, but what are the chances that the world is perhaps ready for a black pope?
Well, that makes me laugh a little, but then you can never say never. Before Pope Francis becoming the Pope from Latin America, nobody ever thought of him, a cardinal from Latin America becoming a Pope. And of course, Pope Francis wasn't even in the permutation during the conclave that brought him on board as Pope. So we can never say that it is impossible to have a Pope from Africa or from even other parts of the world rather than Europe, that has been the traditional place of where you have many popes for 1,000 years. So I still believe strongly with the appointments of many cardinals from the periphery, as Father Patrick has said, we should keep our fingers crossed and see what's happened in the conclave and see how it plays out. You can never tell. But above all, let us not forget that it is God himself that chooses. It is the Spirit of God that is at play when the conclave begins, because of course you know how very rigorous the conclave can be for the cardinals themselves in terms of choosing and all that. So we keep our fingers crossed and see what the Lord wants to choose for us at this point in time.
All right, just to wrap things up, Father Patrick, I'd like you to speak quickly to the Nigerian Catholic community on the demise of the Pope, and what strong message would you have for them at this in this period of mourning? Okay, I think we might have some delayed feedback. Father Anthony, if you could just take that on quickly in 30 seconds.
Well, definitely the Catholics in
Nigerian Catholics, yes. And the Christian community, actually. Catholics,
the Christian world, entire Christian world mourns the Pope because of his touch to everyone. In fact, he went beyond the territory of Christian faith to even to the Muslim and to other faiths. So definitely, I announced the death of the Pope at my morning mass this morning, and everybody shouted in sadness. Okay, so these are the things that we are feeling right now in the Nigerian Catholic community as well. We mourn the Pope. We shall be definitely be participating fully in the 9 days mourning as prescribed by the Vatican, celebrating daily requiem masses for the repose of the Pope. So we really mourn him, and we miss him too. Even though he didn't come to Nigeria, he definitely came to Africa. He visited African countries. He had almost, and he mentioned Nigeria severally on the front of insecurities and all that we are having. So definitely, the Pope loved Nigeria as well, and we really miss his presence as the head of the Catholic Church.
All right. Thank you very much for sparing the time to speak with us. We appreciate it. Good night.